We are being fed an almost unending stream of people crying about U.S. aid and how hurt, surprised they are by what they're hearing. The graft, corruption, and as some call it, treason that they're seeing, and from people who they thought were um, citizens and defenders of the country and even of the ideals that they believe in. But for me, it's like, well, what did you expect? This is the expected outcome. It's what people basically vote for. What do you think democracy is? If a person is honest, above board, they would never get elected. Imagine going out in front of the country and telling people exactly who you are, exactly what you could do, and even if what you want to do is noble, how would you actually do it? In the best case scenario, nobody can afford to run a country, never mind anything else. You can't, no leader has any power. They don't have enough money. Elon Musk does not have enough money to run a government, not even a very small government, because governments cost money. Operating a government requires power. Nobody has enough money or power to run a government. You have to get it somewhere, both the power and the money. So how do you get it? You get it by promising people things that you don't have, but with their help can get. It's the same dynamic that a gangster uses. He can beat some into submission, but in the end, he needs cooperation of people who will help him beat up other people and extract money from them. A gangster can't run a gang any better than a government can run a state without the cooperation and violence or threat of violence of others. Is a leverage. You get some people to cooperate with you on the promise of spoils. It's like an invading army in the old days. The leader of the army would be prove to be a good military leader, a good fighter, and he would amass some younger, stronger men around him, and off they would go to war, and others would tag along, and they would win battles and gain booty. The booty, then he can amass more men around him, make more wars, and win more booty, become richer, and enrich his elite corps, who will then help him to amass greater armies and win more victories and more battles and so on, and eventually conquer the world. But at some point, usually, there's too many men to share the booty with. They can't win enough victories or big enough victories to actually enrich enough of them that they all want to fight. But this then brings us to democracy. Who is going to vote for a leader? Think of it. Would you vote for an owner? Would you vote for someone to come in and operate your household and tell you what to do with your money? In that kind of blatant or direct or obvious kind of tyranny, nobody wants it to happen. Nobody's going to vote for someone to make laws to govern them. personally. We always vote for someone to make laws to govern other people, and technically to take money from other people to operate a system that benefits us. There are a few noble people who might vote for someone to do something that they feel needs doing above and beyond what their own personal interests are. But what can they expect, or what are they voting for? They're voting for someone to take their money and to assume our power is assisting them, because that's all they can do. They can only get our cooperation and our money. There's nothing else that they can do for us. If they do anything for us above and beyond that, it's because we are being replaced by someone else who is funding them and giving them their cooperation. But in fact, the people who are most likely to cooperate with them and to give them assistance are the ones who aren't funding them. So a democracy is really a gang that picks the leader who will have their supporters who give them power so that they can go out and get finances from the conquered group. And that's basically all it is. So we're back to the problem of making these supporters happy. They don't want to be worse off, they want to be better off. And so the money has to come somewhere. And then we talk about funding. Well, we can have direct conquering, direct power onto other people, but this is very destructive and unsettling, and it creates chaos, creating armed conflict. So if they can use the power to write laws to extract wealth from this subject group, then they can take this money and distribute it to their leaders, to their followers. But this can only be done blatantly to a certain extent before a riot, before a revolution starts. So you're going to get things like USAID, where this money is taken for the most noble of purposes, but is actually being taken to funnel wealth to the supporters, to gain support, not only domestically but internationally. So USAID is a natural outgrowth of democracy, because democracy, you can't go to a group of people and be honest with them. You have to be deceitful. You have to say, I am supporting everybody, I'm going to do everything for everybody, when in reality you can't. You have to take a group of people who you will give to get power by taking money from others and really ripping them off. That's the only way. You have to rip off others. You have to rip off people to support the in-group, to support the supporters. And that's the only way you can do it. There is no other way. The government cannot benefit everybody. At some point they have to choose who is the in-group, who is their main supporters, and who are those who they can afford to lie to, cheat, and steal from. There's no other way to run a government. Not a democracy. You can run a state as a theocracy in under the rule of God, under the systems that God has implemented, where people get paid for what they do and they pay for what they get. It's either that, you either work for what you do, work for what you want, pay for what you get, or you got some kind of tyranny, and that includes democracy. Democracy is just tyranny by another name. There's no such thing That's by the will of the people, because there's nobody that wants law over them. There's nobody that wants to pay for other people. So you're always going to get the in-group and the out-group, and you're always going to get deceit, lies, and corruption. And it all depends on how blatant and how widespread it is. But you're never going to get away from it unless you have a theocracy. That's just the way it is. There's no other way. It's a theocracy or tyranny. And democracy is just a tyranny by soft means. It's just a soft peddling of tyranny. It's nothing, no different in the basics. Democracy is no different from tyranny, except in how much deceit they use rather than just blatant, outright force. That's the way it is.